Hey everyone, so in today's video we are back with another Buy This Not That, and in today's video I wanted to focus on liquid blushes. I will leave my entire Buy This Not That playlist linked down below for you guys in case you want to check out some of the other videos I've done, but today I wanted to focus on liquid blushes just because I feel like within the whole cream blush umbrella, I feel like liquid blushes have just kind of, you know, they're gaining traction. There are a lot more brands coming out with specifically liquid blushes rather than like compact cream blushes, stick cream blushes. I mean, we all know that cream products have definitely exploded, but specifically I've definitely been seeing more liquid blushes lately. So I wanted to kind of do a big breakdown of formulas for you guys, some comparisons. You guys know I love doing comparisons, just so, you know, there's a lot of information for you guys to decide whether or not a certain formula will work great for you, or if, you know, another formula is going to be a much better option. But let's first start with this formula right here. These are new from Charlotte Tilbury. They are the Pillow Talk Matte Beauty Blush Wands. I have two shades. I have Pink Pop as well as Pillow Talk. Now, Pillow Talk is an exclusive shade on the Charlotte Tilbury website, at least for the time being. Now, you get 0.4 ounces of product in here, so almost an entire half an ounce of product. So you definitely get a lot in here, though I know it's been brought up time and time again, and I'm not gonna kind of drone on about it too much, but there is, you know, it does feel like there's air in here, so it kind of leads you to believe that there's less product than there actually is. But this does have 0.4 ounces of product in it, which is definitely not a stingy amount. But you do have to put up a little bit more money. They are $42. The reason I was specifically interested in this launch from Charlotte Tilbury is that I personally find Charlotte Tilbury's cream formulas to be something special. I think that she always likes to do something a little bit different. Her cream bronzer is one of my favorites that I've ever tried. The Flawless Filter really, when it came out, was a one-of-a-kind product. Quite honestly though, with this launch from Charlotte Tilbury, I found the formula to just be pretty consistent and just nice. There isn't anything crazy innovative here. These have a really nice liquid formula. They have a bit of that spreadability that I really enjoy, which means that you apply a little bit and it's going to sheer out pretty readily. It definitely has a touch of, you know, like a silicone slip, but not in a way that makes me afraid that it wouldn't stick to my skin. Again, it shears out really well over the skin. It does have a nice kind of touch of blur. It doesn't sit too heavily on the skin either. And as far as base pigment goes, I do find there's just a little bit more white to the base pigment of Pink Pop. And quite honestly, I just find this shade to be pretty, I don't know. I just don't think that it's anything crazy, you know, to write home about. I don't see myself really reaching for this shade. However, the shade Pillow Talk I actually think is really, really beautiful. I definitely do see myself reaching for this. I actually have two blushes on my skin today, and I went over the blush I had with this just because I was kind of getting in the more mauve territory, and I wanted to add a little bit of this shade. They're really nice. They blend really nicely. All around, just, you know, a good stable formula. You know, a lot of people have been talking about how they compare to the Rare Beauty liquid blushes. This is certainly a release that I am quite familiar with. I don't even know how many I have. I mean, I have a lot. There are 4 matte shades specifically, and then there are also 7 radiant shades within the Rare Beauty liquid blush line. You get 0.25 ounces of product, and they retail for $23. So price per ounce, these are both pretty similar. I will say though that I do think that the Rare Beauty has a touch more pigment, and honestly the texture of these is really, really similar. I notice that kind of spreadable quality with the Rare Beauty that I notice with the Charlotte Tilbury. I would say that maybe the Charlotte Tilbury has a touch more heft to it. So if you like something that truly feels like a cream rather than a liquid, this leans closer to the cream realm. I mean, obviously it's still liquid, but it leans closer to the cream realm than the Rare Beauty does. I actually did a wear test with these the other day just because I was curious to see if the Rare Beauty, because they do have more pigment, would last longer than the ones from Charlotte Tilbury. And I felt like they looked pretty much the same. And honestly, as far as texture and the way they looked, I also felt like it was pretty much the same. They have such a smooth, pigmented, blendable, and long-lasting formula that it consistently is a liquid blush that I go back to, that I really enjoy. So Buy This Not That, for me personally, I think that if you want to try a few different colors of a liquid blush, I mean, the Rare Beauty is probably a better way to go, considering that you have to put up less money. The packaging is a lot less messy, in my opinion, as well. And they're just a formula that I know no matter what, I can go back and recommend. So, you know, I personally lean towards the ones from Rare Beauty. That being said, this Pillow Talk blush from Charlotte Tilbury is absolutely beautiful. And no, I don't think that there is an exact shade dupe within the Rare Beauty line. I will leave up some swatches just in case you guys are interested. If you are interested in this shade in particular, and if you're interested in the formula, my vote is that this is a good formula and a really beautiful color. Just, you know, as far as recommendations go, I would tend to lean towards the Rare Beauty because they're just so consistent and they're some of the best. Now, shall we talk about another product from Charlotte Tilbury? These are the Highblushes. So they're like a highlight blush combo. They are the Glowgasm Beauty Light Wand. So this is the shade Pinkgasm. I have tried Peachgasm, and I'll talk about that in a sec. You get 0.41 ounces of product. And again, they're $42. Love or hate this packaging. This is just really easy to get on the face. I don't think it's ideal, but I understand the ease of use. For some reason, every time I bring up applicators like this, it's just like it's a whole debate in the comment section. I don't really know what else to say about it. Honestly, I'm kind of like tired of even acknowledging the packaging. I have to say that this is one of the only like luminous highlight blushes that I've ever found that I actually liked. It definitely gives you that highlighted glowy appearance on the skin. I don't think it's going to be awesome for someone with super textured skin because again, it does have a little bit of a shift to it. It's not a glitter, it's just a gleam, just, you know, a little bit of a pearl. And the pearl is a little bit peachy, which I just find to be really flattering. There's something just very youthful and fresh about a color like this. However, I did try Peachgasm from the same line and I did not like it. It looked way too textured on my skin. Somehow this one does not. So I would say, you know, if you're leaning towards one of the shades, I would definitely go with Pinkgasm. But the formula itself, you guys, feels pretty similar to the matte blushes from Charlotte Tilbury. They set down on the skin. All of the products that I've talked about, they set down on the skin, which is really nice. They don't remain super tacky. They have nice longevity. I definitely see, you know, having something like this to use as like a blush topper. I don't, though, find myself reaching for this consistently as just a blush on its own, just because of the control aspect. I like to really control every step of my makeup, and when I'm going in with a luminous blush, you know, unless everything else has been pretty matte, this on top of a dewy, you know, bronzer on top of a dewy foundation, it just might be too much. All in all, though, I think that the formula is good. But I wanted to compare it to these Tarte Maneater Blush and Glows. I have talked about these before on my channel. There are 4 different shades. I think there might even be more on the Tarte website. They retail for $27 and you get 0.27 ounces of product. This packaging has like a nice doe foot applicator, so it's just a little bit easier. These are very sheer and hydrating on the skin. They're very nice for kind of a no makeup look. They're not gonna do any insane, you know, blurring on the skin. They're not going to look flawless by any means, you know, comparatively to like more of a matte blush like the ones from Charlotte Tilbury or even, you know, the Rare Beauty. And by the way, when I say matte, I think some people get confused between matte and mattifying. This is matte in the sense of there is no visible shimmer whatsoever, and they kind of set down to more of a velvety look, the ones from Rare Beauty, but they aren't necessarily mattifying. And I saw a few comments saying that like the matte blushes from Charlotte Tilbury looked really dewy. Just look velvety on the skin. There's absolutely no shimmer, but they're not a mattifying blush. So just an aside, I wanted to clear that up a little bit in case you guys were wondering. But these just have a really kind of dewy, fresh appearance to them on the skin. Pigmentation wise, they definitely have less pigmentation than the ones from Charlotte Tilbury. And they kind of have this like gel texture to them. And especially for quick makeup, like out the door, swipe these on the skin, give it a little blend. It's like a nice sheer flush. They're really pretty. I think if you're leaning towards something with more pearl and longevity, I would probably go with the one from Charlotte Tilbury. As far as like not going to last quite as long, but look pretty fresh and kind of just a no makeup look, I think the Tarte are probably a better way to go. Next, let's talk about the Glossier Cloud Paints. I wanted to revisit this formula with you guys because I think there's something to be said about going back to kind of like a touchstone formula within, you know, a video like this. So they come in 8 shades, 20 bucks, 0.33 ounces. I think it's a great price point. And quite honestly, I think the shades that Glossier has come out with, I think they're really beautiful. I've been a fan of these for a long time, but I've found that I just haven't reached for them in so long. I find that the lighter shades have a little bit more base pigment to them. And then as you get into like, maybe like the more vibrant shades, I should say, they have less base pigment to them. So I wanted to point that out. And I definitely have noticed that with some brands. Like I definitely noticed it within even the Charlotte Tilbury, like Pink Pop, way more white base pigment. I think it might just be, you know, the way formulation goes, but I thought it would be worth noting. These liquid blushes, to me, just have the texture of foundation. Whenever I'm applying foundation and I use these over top, it just feels like another layer of foundation. And I love that about these. I think it was even this one YouTuber, Christine. I'm not sure if you guys follow her. It's Christine with like a bunch of N's and E's. I feel like it was her that I remember describing these as like a foundation texture. And that thought immediately came into my mind when I tried these after so long. They just want to blend with your foundation. They look really seamless and it's really easy to have a makeup look that doesn't look like there's textures kind of competing on the skin, but it's something that not all of us are cognizant of, I find. You know, layering a really thick, creamy blush on top of a very thin skin tint, or, you know, vice versa. Sometimes it's just not going to work. And I find that this texture, it just feels like another layer of foundation. I am really happy that I revisited this formula. Dusk is still one of like my favorite blush colors that I've ever used. The packaging, though, it's absolutely adorable and I wouldn't ever tell them to change it. It is difficult to get like just the right amount of product out, but nevertheless, they last really well. They look really natural and they don't have too much dewiness to them. It's a very like middle of the road kind of natural finish. I just kind of remembered that there have been formulas that have been out for a long time and these are still just a really stable, pretty formula. And I'm honestly kind of excited to like bring them back into my collection and start using them again. I did want to talk about another liquid blush formula. These are from a brand called Half Caked and they are the Insync liquid blushes. I mentioned these in my Best of Beauty 2022. So you guys know that I think that these are some absolutely beautiful blushes. They come in 5 shades. They're 10 bucks a piece and you get 0.5 ounces of product. The base pigment is a little bit more sheer than the ones from Glossier. Not that they're lacking in pigment, just the base pigment itself. They're a little bit more sheer. They're very smooth on the skin and they sit really closely on the skin. They have a nice liquid texture, pretty similar to the Glossier, but I would say just a touch thinner. They do look a little bit more dewy and juicy on the cheeks whereas I feel like the Glossier just have a touch of more of a natural finish. But I really like the finish. And I think that if you are going with more sheer makeup, then the Insync blushes are probably going to be better for you just because I feel like they would get along better with thinner textures. Quite honestly, I think they're just really freaking beautiful. Easy to blend, just a very consistent product, and definitely one of the best affordable blushes that I have ever used. I think if you want something that's a little bit more of a middle of the road kind of formula, something just is a little bit more natural, the cloud paints are probably a better way to go. But if you don't mind something a little bit more dewy and still has a lot of really pretty pigment, easy to work with, I think the Insync ones are bomb. And lastly, as a little bonus round, I wanted to mention these just because I have this feeling like they're being discontinued. They are 20% off at Ulta right now. These are the Smashbox Halo Sheer to Stay liquid blushes. I picked up the shade Terracotta and I just kind of fell in love with the formula. I wore this all over my skin and then I applied the Charlotte Tilbury over it just to kind of get all the colors going and working a little bit better. But I have to say that if you are one of those people that loves a cheek stain, but you want to work with a formula that leans more in the liquid blush realm, then this is like, they're really, really good. They're one of the best. I really see these as like a liquid cream blush formula of something like the Benetint's. They have a great translucence to them. They look really juicy and they stain the cheeks really nicely. That being said, and I think this kind of goes with like stains in general, liquid stain products, I just find they work better with a thinner foundation. If you use these with a really thick foundation or a creamier foundation, I just find you can kind of see the two different textures sitting on the skin. So I wouldn't recommend these for like a full beat, obviously, but just for like an everyday kind of look, kind of don't know where the product starts and stops because it's just so thin and pretty. I can totally see someone applying like a sheer tint, tapping these on with some fingers, and then it just being that really pretty juicy flush that lasts all day. I think the colors are also really pretty. So it is a shame that it feels like they're being discontinued. Have to think that they would be if they're on discount. Yeah, I did want to give these a little bit of a shout out. And those are all of my comparisons for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. And again, I'm going to leave all of the products I talked about linked down below. I'm also going to leave my Buy This Not That playlist for you guys, and let me know what comparisons you guys want to see next. Thank you guys so much for being here, and I will see you in my next one.